I mean, again, this is what Paul is getting at when he talks about the Gentiles who are past feeling, because they just ignore their conscience. And this is what he's getting at in Romans chapter 2 when he's talking about, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are unseemly. He says, for they didn't like to retain the thought of God in their knowledge. They didn't like to entertain them, so that they suppressed the truth or held the truth. It's the King James has rendered it, but it's talking about to hold the truth, to suppress it, to hold it down with their unrighteousness. And for that reason, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, and because they just got to where they were past feeling. And that's what Paul was talking about in another place, They just run greedily after error. And this is what I'm talking. This is why the new covenant is about faith and living by our conscience, living by the measure of faith that we have. And as he describes in Romans chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, that the righteousness of God is revealed in the gospel of Jesus Christ, from faith unto faith. It is written, the just shall live by faith. And this is what he's also getting at again in Ephesians chapter 5, when he's talking about having no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reproving them. The Greek means to expose. He says, for what makes manifest all things is the light. This comes back to the conscience of man, the state of man in the beginning, whenever he ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that God said, don't eat of it, because in the day that you eat of it, you'll die. Dying, you will surely die in the day that you eat of it. And so when they ate of the tree, when Satan had convinced the woman that they wouldn't die, and she ate of it and gave to her husband with her, it says the eyes of them both were open in Genesis 3:7, to know that they were naked, to know the shame of their nakedness, so that when they heard the sound of the Lord God in the cool of the day in the garden, they hid themselves from his presence amongst the trees of the garden. And this is why it's of faith. You see what God says to him when he's calling out to him, Adam, where are you? He knows where he's at, but this is to show that man was lost. And he said, I heard the sound of you, and I was afraid because I was naked. He said, who told you you were naked? Did you eat of the tree that I told you not to eat of?